I think the clubs needs to do a lot more. Like, how are you releasing players at the age of 17 when they're not even developed? They're still children.
First and foremost, before we start, we obviously want to send our condolences out to the family of Jeremy Wisten, who passed away quite recently. It was, as we were led to believe, it was football related. So mental health is a big part of obviously football and what's happening. So I think it's very important. Obviously, we bring light to the issue and also make sure that if there's regulated charities and people there are to talk to if you are in a similar position.
I think that if any young people are out there watching, just know that if you're going to get yourself into this football is a business, and you just have to be mentally strong out there. It's not all about your talent, what you can do on the pitch. Just make sure that you've got the right people around you, and obviously you just go with it, and you try and give it your all, and make sure that even if it doesn't go well for you, you just got the right people around you, but you can always do something else in the game.
First and foremost, as Jeff said, condolences to the family and the friends at this difficult period. I mean, as Danny said, football is a business, but at the same part, you have to realise that the people in business are human beings. So the human aspect to it has to count, not just from the club, but the family and friends as well. And I think at any level, whether you're getting a contract or not getting a contract, your foundation, your base, your family needs to be there for the strongest structure, because for a long time that is your whole life when you're at the academies and at their clubs, and it can be so difficult when you're no longer there. So again, just condolences to the family, and for everybody who's aspiring in that, just make sure you've always got someone to talk to. It's a massive thing right now, and just take care of yourself as best as possible.
With being that I have more insight, in that type of situation, this will be more an advice towards professional clubs. And I think pro clubs needs to do more, especially at the youth level, in terms of when you're trying to sign players or when you're not signing, or, clubs always know which player they're going to sign and which player they're going to release. And I definitely believe it's time where the FA, along with the clubs, need to have more in terms of having a support group. I remember when I was going through that stage, it was more all the players that get released, you just have a massive trial at Bisham Abbey, if I'm not mistaken, and then that was that. But I honestly do believe now clubs need to do more in terms of helping some of the players, some of the young players who will not be getting contracts at the clubs in terms of academy system. Therefore, what just happened does not happen to any future young players trying to get signed on.
Also, I'd like to condolences to Noddy Styles, who played for Man United. We didn't see him, but his achievements, once World Cup, League and Champions League, so he must have been a good player. But coming back to Jeremy, touching up on Cedric said, I think the clubs needs to do a lot more. Like, how are you releasing players at the age of 17 when they're not even developed? They're still children. So they have to have feeder clubs where maybe in the championship where they can go and just play for them, so they know that they've not wasted all that time. Some of these players have been there since 8 years old. That's all they've known.
Well, you don't think they offered him to someone else? You think they just released him?
No, they don't do that at the moment because they just feel like you're not good enough, and they'll offer you trials, and if you don't get in, that's it. But if you have a feeder club, he's got another club to go to. Like Arsenal, I think they've got Bournemouth and stuff, but it's very low from Premiership to non-league. So if you have a feeder club in Championship and that, maybe you can go there, give him another 2 years or whatever to prove himself. Because at the age of 17, how do you know what he's going to be like as a player? And he's still like a little child, and he's dedicated all his life to this football thing, and you're just telling him that you're not good enough. Some players even get released at 14. Just imagine that. So I think the clubs need to be patient. I know it's a business thing. Be patient, have feeder clubs, move them on, let them know if they're good enough, have a contract that you can have them back. So because they've not developed to their full ability at that age. So I think the clubs need to take responsibilities. You can't tell me at 8 years old, 17, you're telling me I'm not good enough. That is not fair. So yeah, I'd like to support Cedric on what he's just said.
I agree with what you're saying, but you have to understand how much responsibility can an individual club take. Bearing in mind that we've noticed that it is a business. So just like in any business, if you're at a job for 10 years and you get made redundant, there's nothing you can do. There's no feeder stuff. And I know it's a different system, but at the same time, if I was to get released from Man United, Man City, would I accept going to a feeder club? Could I mentally accept that? And this is why I feel that the foundational basis between your family, your friends is crucial. Because at 16, at 15, when you're told, yeah, you're going to make it, I can see you over there, it's one injury, it's one lapse of judgment, it's one problem off the pitch that can totally put everything down. And can you really trace it back to say, oh, this is what happened? So you need that strong support. No matter whether you make it or you don't, you need that. But as a club, you have to understand, if you've got 20 players on your books, and then you can only give 5 to the professional team, do you have an individual system for each one of those 15 kids that don't make it?
Yeah, you should. Hold on, you should do. If you're making millions and millions of these players, if one of them just make it, as like let me give you a little example of touch a bit. If you're like a product maker and you make a drink for everyone that we're consuming, you have a responsibility that what we're consuming is, is good for your body. So if you're a club, you're making that much money. Like what you said about having the support system, all these things, a multi-million company or business should have that available. Like mentally,
they have it to a degree.
To a degree, but it has to be the best.
Rob, no. Boys, we must. Let's not get away that football, before being a business, it is a sport. Yeah. And then we all know sports is all down to merit. It's based on merit. It's not based on. Remember, these are football clubs. Their job is there to train and coach you. And the best players, the talented players, they go on to be kept. Yeah. And what we must understand, it doesn't mean because one club says they believe you're not good enough for them that you can't go to another club. But I think we must be realistic. You can't place all the responsibility into the professional clubs for keeping these players. Remember, they're giving you an opportunity. No, we have to be realistic. Pro clubs have given you an opportunity to showcase your talent. Remember, being at the academy, you're doing your. Not every single kid has that opportunity to be at the academy, especially somewhere like Manchester City. So although when I'm saying about taking more responsibility, I'm talking about in terms of care after when the players have been released. Do not just release them and then leave them, because when I was involved, a lot of that used to happen. You will come in, like how, it's like from my own personal experience, it was like the really, really good ones you already knew. Coaches will come in and say to you, look, you're all right, son, you're going to get the contract. And then there were others where there will be a day, you're all training, and they'll pull you in one by one and say to you, you've got it or you haven't got it. But after that, not much goes on. I believe clubs need to have some sort of liaison people where when you've been released, where they can come and explain to you, listen, son, although you're not good enough here, but you can go somewhere else and go on to make a career. I can give you dozens of examples. We look at someone like Dele Alli. Where did Dele Alli come from? Where did he get released to? And where did he come back to? So although we're saying about clubs having responsibility,
can I just expand on what Cedric said? I think he's spot on that aspect, because I've been to America. I was in America for about six weeks, and the way it's the culture, innit? The culture of the English game, how the academy set up is set. Like someone mentioned business. Like, it's so business minded in a point where it defects the fact that you're actually educating young men to grow up to be other things, like what they do in America. Like in America, it's like education and sports goes hand in hand. Like,
that's been brought out recently.
It has been brought.
When you was pro, it was the education wasn't their concern.
It was, because I remember when first it wasn't, and then they introduced it whereby I remember our times every Wednesday and Monday we had to go college. Yeah. But you have to get the balance right.
That's right. That's right.
In the sense of, remember, there are some kids out there. If all of my young life I've trained to be a footballer, some kids did not enjoy going to the college like me. What am I going to college for? I want to be a footballer. I want to be training, but it was a tick box exercise, as you said.
That's right. This is what I'm trying to touch on, right? That happens a lot in this country, but in America, the standards are different because in here it's almost a football is more important than education. You've got to do the education to look good, but in America it goes hand in hand in terms of you have to you're educating a kid where it gets to a point where he's not going to think football is not the be and end of my life. I might not make as a footballer, but I've got a plan B. And that's why, as a coach, I've always told my players, fair enough, yeah, you got to keep telling them that at a very young age. If they're not taught that, and in their mind they're so focused and they're so consumed in the fact that football is I've got to make it, or there's no other thing. That's probably why all these things happen. I'm not saying like is the exact reason, because mental illness happens to anyone. It happens to men like me. Do you know what I'm saying? So we don't know if that is football that's made that happen. It could be other things. But I'm just saying on that aspect in terms of how we deal with things in this country and in other countries, where I feel we need to really emphasise that in here. Where I know we want to be footballers, but education has to go also hand in hand with it. That way, you're giving the player another option. You're giving him a plan B in terms of, I might not be able to make it, but I can go and do other things. Yeah.
This is the reason why I said, in this country, players get released too early. Like, if you're in the education system and playing football at the same time, I know it's a distraction, because you are concentrating on one or the other. But if you're releasing players too early, when you get to the age of 22, if you're at a club and you have opportunity to do like university courses, by the time if you get released at 22, you can still have a degree and get on with your life. That's something I think they need to bring to this country. Like at the age, so they're releasing players too early, and it's not enough time. 14, 15, and 17 is not enough. In 22, probably a good time. Say this player's not going to do it. This.
Can I just add one thing in that, just to close it off, and it's not going to be long. All I want to say now, what we must understand, football has evolved. In the olden days, people like Ian Wright, they made it for you, when you was 22, 23, you was considered still a youngster. Yeah. You're not even making your debut. But hold on, so let me finish. But now, because now you're seeing 16-year-olds playing in the first team. So what you're saying about you're releasing players when they're young, football is evolved. Hold on. Do you understand? Because if you're really good at 17, or 16, some 17, look, Mason Greenwood started playing when he was 17. So the point you're trying to make about releasing players too early, you have to understand. Football has changed. None. Football, exactly. So this is the thing.
He came in at the age of and burnt out in mid-20s.
So people develop
injuries. Yeah, but fine. But he did have injuries. We can't use that. We can't use that as an. He did burn out. Like if you're not on the world stage, if you're not doing what you're doing as you came anymore.
If you don't mind, let me just.
The injuries.
I think you should have last point, because you've just not spoken.
First and foremost, condolences definitely to Jeremy's family, because no one deserves to die, especially at such a young age. I think in relation to football, it's very difficult, and like we've been saying, everyone's been saying it, it's about finding that balance. You can't release players when they're too old. You can't release them when they're too young. But at the same time, although it is a sport, it's also a business on that aspect. I think the most important thing is, like you've said, the aftercare. What's really going on with the education aspect? Whilst they're training, whilst they're playing, how are they being educated throughout all those years? What is the focus on the mental health as well? Because
what is the emphasis on the education? Because as said, I turned up to tick the box, but I didn't really want to be there. And I think 9 out of 10, most young people, if you're thinking about football and that first pro contract and the game on Saturday and going away on tour and stuff like that, maths, English, science, and possibly going to university is secondary to you.
Definitely.
It's all compassing, but you have to ask yourself.
The new thing is part of that. They're putting that together to help you as a player, just in case. So you can't just say, I just want to turn up and play football. It's part, it comes in hand.
It's all part of the same part.
So if they're doing it,
how many people do just want to turn up and play
football? They do, but you can educate them to say, you know what, we're doing this just to help your development as well. Because your career, if you even make it, you're going to have 10 years career. You can get injured, like you said about Michael Owen, got injured. If he wasn't on big contracts, he could have issues with financial issues.
Not to cut you off, Nana, but we could talk about this all day. I think this is something that we probably need to do another episode on this.
So, I think,
But definitely condolences to Jeremy's family and anyone that knew him. Condolences to anyone that knew him.
Thank you.